Travis Wayne Goodsall. I have noticed a pattern of the videos that get the most thumbs down from Mormons. They are concerning doctrinal, administrative, theological, Mormonism stuff. It's one thing to not know anything about Mormonism when you're a Mormon and you've been so your whole life. It's another thing to be upset with somebody who knows the correct Mormonism and you deny that it's correct, having been Mormon your whole life. Every priesthood holder who came to the correcting the priesthood line of succession with administrative presidential line of succession knows exactly that I am correct on this. And yet, Mormons are getting angry just to get angry, or denying just to deny. That makes you evil, Mormons. That doesn't make the church true. I don't know what makes you think that by denying the church is automatically true. You are a terrorist demanding that I accept your falsehoods, or what? You're gonna hurt me? You're gonna cyber terrorize me again? You guys are twisted. You don't understand that you're digging your own grave. You're not building the kingdom of God, you are digging your own grave. I like that for a title. So, James Goldstein has two comments. The one I will not accept because I've got an app for earthquakes. Just so that you know. The YouTube channel that has earthquake awareness, great. I have an app. And on the sealed Book of Mormon plates, he says, I swear to God, I just commented on this video. Not that I'm aware of. All things are held for review. I got a phone call from Kimura Hill while watching this a bit earlier. Really? You do know that that's owned and operated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, don't you? Why are they calling you, James? Are you a betrayer? Are you pretending to be a subscriber when you're a betrayer? Having a cool, a Terminator with the Nicolas Cage Marvel character. I can't remember his name. The bike rider who turns into flames. So I'm not sure which one the skeleton head is, but so we'll check to see if your YouTube flagged you. No? No, they didn't flag you. Alright, Jasmine. Cute Jasmine. Investigating the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints because the missionaries are unhappy with her. reads and studies not just every single edition of the Book of Mormon since 1830, not just every single edition of the Doctrine and Covenants since the Book of Commandments in 1833. Jasmine is awesome. How do I get a girlfriend if not a wife like her? Dear God, she is awesome. You know, my influence on the first wife was such that she eventually secretly was caught studying the Institute manuals. Better than coming home and catching her in bed with some other guy. She would go on to learn that she needed to leave the house for that one. So, anyway. Such is the life of a Mormon boy. So, Jasmine had another comment, and I've already had this discussion with Jasmine. She was revealing some stuff that I did not want shared with the general populace. And she's innocent and pure and holy, and so I needed to protect her. And she didn't understand. She thought I was protecting her against her being exposed. Now, if Jasmine wants to expose herself, that's up to her. But my experience with the church as the second wife, and even the first, there was some involvement of this too, in which, in order to attack me directly, they needed to have leverage over me. And so thus they went after my families, the wives specifically, in order to extort me into conformity and compliance. We see this all the time in all the different movies and TV shows that are out there. When you have something that you value, and most of the time it's your family, it gets used against you by the terrorist enemies. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints uses the same exact tactic on me. And on you too. Those of you who have left the church have been victimized by Mormons who extort and threaten you at some level or degree to conform and comply and come back to church. They're unhappy with you leaving, and they'll do whatever they deem necessary to make sure you come back or your life is ruined. Even if it means calling you a zombie and murdering you and then dissecting your body parts and burying them in the backyard of your Rexburg house. Tragic. And so, James and Jasmine are my newest, and Jasmine is my bestest buddy. And so I do not want harm to come to them, to get to me. And so, regardless, I will bring out what she was asking about in that other comment, in which she had found in her studies that there were people claiming that Mark is the original document upon which Matthew and Luke were derived from. And this is my field of expertise, so yeah, I know all about this. Mark is considered the oldest document. It's got a papyrus number and all that. But unfortunately, because they do not know the source origin of the book of Mark, They therefore don't understand the book of Matthew and thus the book of Luke and the others. And for the Old Testament, there was a German who developed what's called the documentary hypothesis, in which he claimed that the authors of each of the books of the Torah are a number of different authors combined into each one, more so in Genesis than in the others, in which he believes he's found a linguistic pattern of different source authors, and believe that it means that they came from earlier documents that we just don't have in existence, and he gave them all name labels: the Yahwist, Elohist, Priestly, Deuteronomic, that type of thing. And so it's completely wrong, because first and foremost, you have to have a testable theory in order to make such a claim. And there are no original documents for us to test a theory for, and thus we have to dismiss it. We cannot have an indefinite theory and not bother to pursue other options for conclusions simply because we're just waiting for how many more centuries, millennia, until we find an original documents to verify. Mormon apologists make this same mistake, as we don't have the Book of Mormon gold plates. And so notice, it's apologists who even got Nelson to say in the April special session of conference, golden plates, as the primary hymn. The golden plates lay hidden deep in the mountainside. And that goes back to James with Comoros Hill. Yes, James is cheating on me. And so the text is very clear. It's gold plates. To say golden is to deny Joseph Smith, calling Joseph Smith, our founder, wrong. You are not in the right by calling our founder wrong. And so it's important that Mormons go to the Joseph Smith papers to confirm the Joseph Smith history of 1838, the Book of Mormon, 1830, and the original Doctrine and Covenants of 1835. You know, what Jasmine is doing. Why can't you guys be more like Jasmine? She's not a member. You're a member and you can't be like Jasmine? For shame. And so, with Mark, well, further problems is that having deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, I then deciphered Egyptian in the language of the Egyptians. Learning of the Egyptians, language of the Egyptians. And you're saying, well, I thought Egyptian was already deciphered. Yeah, and the learning of the Greeks, language of the Egyptians, from the Rosetta Stone. Notice how 1 Nephi chapter 1 verse 2 says the learning of the Jews, language of the Egyptians. There are differences of language. And so having deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, it enabled me to catch on to what's going on in Egyptian that Egyptologists do not know. For example, facsimile number 1, go through each and every single hieroglyph within the pictoglyph. the facsimile. Use Sir Alan Gardner's sign list. You can find it on Wikipedia. And then just go through and see how many of them you can match with what's in Gardner's sign list. Gardner's sign list is the authoritative sign list. They no longer use Budge as authoritative. Budge has more signs, but Gardner's is authoritative, not Budge. But even Budge does not have all the signs either. And so then you can go to facsimile number 3 and even facsimile number 2, and you'll notice on the Wikipedia about the facsimiles that there's a translation of the text. Egyptologists in the learning of the Greeks language of the Egyptians know how to translate the text, but then again use Gardner's sign list and run through the ones that aren't translated. See how many you can find. And see how many you can't. The Egyptians intended all of it to be translatable. Even facsimile number 1. And so guess what? The Bible stories, because this was my discovery after deciphering the learning of the Egyptians in the language of the Egyptians, the Bible stories come directly from the Egyptian documents. And so yes, I've run the tests. The facsimiles were part of that test. And sure enough, my translations, because there's levels of translations. It's not just one word per hieroglyph. Egyptologists do that. They're incomplete. Learning of the Egyptians, language of the Egyptians. It's a visionary language. So a picture is worth a billion words, literally. And so yeah, over the years I've published, I've posted, so that people can learn all about this process. And so the gospel stories are in the similar vein, because they were all written during the same time period by Jewish authors during the Roman period time. And so Mark is older. Okay, I can accept that. You ran the test. I'll trust that he's being honest. But Matthew and Luke did not derive from Mark. They independently came from the Egyptian hieroglyphs. They picked and chose and put into a narrative order. Thus, Matthew and Mark are very closely similar. Luke, not as similar. There's some differences, especially in the beginning. And notice how they don't include John, because John is different. And they don't include the Gospels that were rejected that are similar to Matthew and Mark. They don't include those because they weren't approved by the Holy Roman Empire after the creation of Christianity by Constantine. And so what they're trying to do by failing to use science and follow through with their theories for confirmation, because there are no original documents. Because even though Mark is older, it's still after the time of Jesus, if we take it literal history. And this is where we catch them with the bias of Christianity to prove Christianity true. not using science and letting science dictate what the truth is. Because they're under the belief that Jesus was real, and that these authors are actually writing about the real Jesus who appeared in the Roman period time and did all the things that are written about him. Oh dear God. This is what's called an anachronism. Constantine created Christianity in 325 CE. Mark is written, dated to the 1st century. 200 years before the creation of Christianity. And so thus, the scholars are wrong. It's real easy to do. And so they gotta scrap their claim and start all over again and focus on the facts, using the evidence to lead to the conclusion with a scientific-based theory that can be tested immediately, using logical, sound arguments of Socratic methodology, not fallacies. And if Mormon apologists would also do that, we'd have a different result of what the Book of Mormon is. But instead it was up to me to do it. Not even Expo Nevermose could do it. You know Sidney Rigdon's the major author, some of you anyway. So follow that. Put that in your premises in the development of a theory. Now, it's the learning of the Jews. 1 Nephi chapter 1 verse 2. And so Sidney Rigdon didn't rewrite the 116 pages. This much you know. And thus it's more in the learning of the Jews than the rest of the book by Sidney Rigdon. And so is there anybody contemporary with Sidney Rigdon associated with Joseph Smith Jr. who has some involvement with a religion of the Jews, such that it's pre-Babylonian captivity Israelite Egyptians? You know, say like a new Israelite. Yeah, Joseph Smith Sr. Once you start to assemble the facts together, you then get the correct picture of what's going on. And then you can figure out why there's cows in the Book of Mormon, why the late war is in the Book of Mormon in the place it's in the Book of Mormon. And then you can correctly understand the Tree of Life and not use Christianity interpretation, not use Mormon apologists who say, well, China had a Tree of Life, therefore the Book of Mormon's true. Oh look, a Mayan glyph with a Tree of Life. It must be true. He's also in outer space. He's a space alien. If Egyptologists have botched Egyptian this badly, I would hate to fact check the Mayan translators and Aztec translators. Oh dear God. Don't make me have to do all the work and expose you guys as frauds. But from what I've seen, they do tend to catch on to that concept that I had deciphered Egyptian with. So it could be correct. And so, yeah, Mark, all of them came from the Egyptian documents. And so thus the similar stories are found in each one of them. And that's why you see Christians and even the church in their Bible dictionary, they have a harmony of the Gospels. No, guys. There is no harmony. Other than the symbolisms all refer to the latter days. And the latter days are over with. Sorry, Mormons, you missed it. It's over. So, good job. The church deceived you. And you'll never know because you don't believe. So, have fun with your life. Because it's about to be over. Church is going to destroy America and murder you to do it and blah, blah, blah. And you won't believe. I'm here warning you, and you want to murder me for trying to save your life. Thanks a lot. Okay? Does that answer your question, Jasmine? I already emailed you the answer. You like to hear my voice rather than read my voice. And so, on Jasmine prepares for her Mormon Bishop Temple Covenant interview to receive the underwear. And so yes, if I keep this series going, and I don't stop with the first one, eventually there will be a Jasmine underwear try-on. You've already seen that I have them. There's Jesus wearing the underwear. How could you be so deceived, Mormons? Seriously. Are you just spiting me to remain in bondage and loving it just to spite me? You're not hurting me. You're only hurting yourself. I'm trying to save you. And so if you think you're going to hurt me by going, oh yeah, well, we're going to remain in bondage and we're going to love it. That'll show you, Travis. Being mean to us, trying to save our lives, and release us from bondage, and show us what the truth is, so they won't lie to other people. Yeah, I know, it's humiliating. The church punked you. Own it. Get angry at them. Protest them. And you won't do it. You know, others have done protesting when certain attacks were made that needed to be stopped immediately, like protecting LDS children from bishops, getting graphic in the interviews, and from women who are being abused by the patriarchal authority, and LGBTQ who are getting abused and threatened with murder, originally by musket fire. But, you know, this is something that you should be going, wait a minute, you know, the whistleblower last year was on 60 Minutes now. And yet Mormons still are not rising up and saying, enough is enough, church. Let us go. And you won't do it. The church is all false simply because they say we're Christian with Jesus. That's in defiance of the Book of Mormon, learning of the Jews. Anybody knows this, except for Christians. So, good morning again, Travis. Third highest views so far in April. Yeah, that did well. It's around 1,000 views right now after 3 days. I had taken a snapshot of when it was 666 views. Thought that was hilarious. And so she says, "You are too sweet for doing this for me." You are sweet. That sweater is just awesome on you, Jasmine. Angel is a centerfold. J. Giles Band. Soft and fuzzy sweater. And so she says she now owes me. And wow, she sent me Drea. That was awesome. What would the bishop say and do when I tell him my husband is African American that smokes and drinks coffee? Well, the church now has, after Brigham Young died, allowed not only interracial couples, but one spouse to be baptized without the other. It's preferred to have both baptized, but the missionaries kind of blew it by saying that James was a fence sitter in the premortal council in heaven. But yeah, they would love to have you all by yourself away from James, hoping to split you guys up, and then you'd be all by yourself, poor helpless Jasmine in need of a man to comfort her during her terrible time of strife. Oh, but you guys are all married. Oh, but Nelson has ordered polygamy in the law of chastity, Jasmine. Oh, that's great. So do I choose, or do you fight to the death as to who gets me? And then the priesthood is going to find out that the president of the church chooses, just like Warren Jeffs did. And then it's not going to be such a great church after all, is it? You thought it was all fun and games to destroy America and build the kingdom until the prophets took your wife. And the wife you wanted. The mistress. And so, yeah, that's the sad reality, Jasmine, is that because of polygamy that still exists in the minds of Mormons, this is how men think. It's how women think. In Utah, there's this guy named Tim Ballard who had a massive scandal before Russell M. Ballard died. And it's M. Russell Ballard. Because Russell Marion Nelson, and it's some other name for M. Melvin. Is it Melvin? It doesn't matter. Ballard. And the scandal involved Ballard supporting Tim Ballard in his rescue kidnapped children operation into the sex trafficking rings, and posting a letter of support on Tim Ballard's website. And then everything hit the fan as Apostle Ballard had a senior moment and forgot that he supported Tim Ballard and withdrew his support. I don't know Tim Ballard. I never supported him. And so the document magically disappeared from the website. Fox 13 News exposed that. And then, in order to protect the living prophet of Jesus, all these women started coming forward and saying that their consensual sexual activities with Tim Ballard were not consensual after all. That they were now sex abuse. And one of them, it was revealed that she and he were talking about having her be a second wife to Tim Ballard. And if the first wife did not agree, that she can be murdered so that she can then be sealed to Tim Ballard. Got another Chad Daybell Lorivello case going on. So yeah, it got real scandalous, and I haven't heard anything about it for a long time now. What's going on? It's sort of like Ballard's death sort of silenced the case too. Because that's how their whole defense was based on, was Elder Ballard's testimony. And he's gone. He's dead. So, because it also came out right before he died that Ballard approved of the presiding bishopric handing to Tim Ballard membership records of the rich Mormons who paid a lot of tithing. And he's dead. Oh, hilarious. And so, yeah, those are the kinds of scandals we get here in Utah. And so just understand that Mormonism is far creepier than Exvo Never Mo's reveal. I have been into the minds of Mormons, and it's scary. You do not want to go into there. It's worse than your worst nightmares. All of the guys who came to watch you at the dance clubs, yeah, extend that to the factor of 1,000, and you've got the Mormon mind. Because they use Jesus to justify it, not just being a horny male. And so, the missionaries would definitely be pulling out all the tactics as you've already seen. Getting the mission president, the mission president's wife, the convert, members from the ward. And I am surprised that more members from the ward are not making an effort to come out and see you two. That should have been a more prominent tactic to use, because once you're baptized, the missionaries aren't really supposed to be hanging around much anymore. You got the missionaries who get transferred and they're gone, and the ward is supposed to take you in. And I just saw the report from the church news the other day too, that you have a certain period of time after a Mormon is converted and baptized in order to maintain their retention in the church. Otherwise, you lose them. Oh, that's right. It was the membership stats. I was trying to find out if it had been updated yet, and it hasn't been. And it had that little factor in there that they noticed at a certain period of time, and I think it's about 3 months. The majority of Mormons become inactive because they weren't able to be retained within that period of time. And it's a very high percentage, up in the 70s, that are not retained in this church. So despite the ever-increasing numbers of baptisms, the retention tanks the actual active membership down to 2-3 million now. That's what the church does not want you to know about. because the church keeps track of activity, not just through sacrament attendance, but now also through tithing. As Nelson had last year came out with the First Presidency statement that part tithe payers can now be fully included in everything in the church. But then your your question about which I had obtained the First Presidency had come out with a statement in which they listed the temple recommend questions, the worthiness questions, and it still says you have to be a full tithe payer to be worthy. I told you guys back then it was a trap. Nobody believed me. Hilarious. And so, they would want the two of you together, but if James doesn't come along, they'll all be drooling, hoping that you'll remain further and further active, and that will drive a bigger and bigger wedge between the two of you. And then they'll be there to comfort you, Jasmine. Sick and disgusting. I've seen it too many times. And I notice a priesthood holder who is overly defensive about the protection of a sister female. We call them brothers and sisters in the Lord. And pay attention to that guy, because he's got ulterior motives. He is revealing a tell of his mental thinking processes. And I've seen it way too many times in the older and younger singles world, and just all men. We think we're hiding it. We think nobody can know, and yet we all know. And so, him smoking and drinking coffee, yeah, well, he can't join the church. He's a sinner. That's one of the questions. You did watch that video, right? And I went over the questions, word of wisdom. That's in the Doctrine and Covenants. You've read over that. That's why you bring it up, because you know. Yeah, you have to quit smoking. You have to quit drinking coffee and alcohol. And so, yeah, if you guys are unable to do that, the missionaries may fudge to get you baptized before you confess you couldn't give it up, just so they get their numbers, their quota for the month. And then it's up to the ward. The ward failed, and thus you started drinking or smoking or coffee again. Yeah. God. And so, yeah, it's something that's kind of lame, but yeah, smoking and drinking alcohol and doing drugs are harmful to the human body. As there's the movie of the whistleblower of the tobacco industry, the big tobacco, and had his whole life destroyed trying to expose that the cigarette companies purposely lace the cigarettes with addictive content along with chemical harming content so that Americans suffer all kinds of ill effects as a result of getting addicted, and of course the scandals of the tailoring the commercials to children and such. Big problem. But yeah, now they've settled the case, and every state blew the money on other things than helping prevent smoking. And so everybody's forgotten all about it. And alcohol, yeah, I'm sure that when you were dancing, the guys were allowed to drink alcohol. and thus that aggravates the horniness of men. And so, yeah, I heard from my childhood peers before they were allowed to drink of what to do with a woman and blame it on the alcohol. It was just horrifying. I never wanted guys to be friends with me. I wanted nothing to do with guys, hearing all that they talked about to abuse other human beings and women. And thus why I always wanted to hang out with women and watch them model fashion for me. Never happened. So, yeah, that's what would it would be. The mission, however, would be the first ones to interview you. It would be the zone leader who would come in and perform the interview questions for baptism. Bishops, for the most part, like to be involved and will want to interview you as well to get to know you, and so that he can help retain you. Good bishops will do that. But for the most part, it's all up to the mission. The zone leader will interview the two of you, just like they would have done with your neighbor who joined the church. And it would have been the zone leader. And so as long as you don't admit to something seriously criminal or sinful, everything will be fine. As long as you're saying that you've quit smoking and drinking coffee, they will rush the baptism through to get the numbers, and leave it up to you to be able to continue to stop. As long as you don't say you've murdered somebody and the body is buried in the backyard. Or that you have swinging parties. Those would need to be escalated to the mission president to come in and check on you. If it's a situation of whether you're still doing it or whether it was in the past, and so it would be a question of the mission president having to interview you to make sure that it is in the past and you've become changed people now that you know about the church. Murder's going to be a tough one, though. And so, would we have a problem with my previous jobs? No, actually, you're going to arouse the men. They'll probably want you to do a ward activity. Jasmine is going to perform a dance for us. Just make sure you send me the video. And have two cameras, one on you, only on you, and another one on the audience's reaction. So that I can watch both. And I'm not sure what you mean by knock you out of your temple recommend. I don't think anybody's going to hurt you. I hope not. They better not. Hilarious. And would he have a problem with the fact that a lot of the times I don't wear underwear? In the beginning, won't matter. But after the temple, yeah, you're going to have to wear the magic underwear. I mean, the covenant underwear of bondage. That's the symbol. So you're going to have to change, Jasmine. You're going to have to cover up and hide. Oh my God, hilarious. Hilarious. Jasmine is so fun and awesome. Okay.